Hello, electronic security and life safety professionals. Welcome to the 2023 ESA Town Hall broadcast. I'm Merlin Gilbo, CEO of the Electronic Security Association here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm joined by our chairman, Mr. John Loud, president of Loud Security Systems out of Atlanta, Georgia. Today, you'll hear critical highlights from the industry's remote monitoring debate. You'll hear news from ESA volunteer leaders from across the nation and the latest updates on association programs and events.
We're going to delve into these stories and more. We're going to bring you the state of the industry update from Mike Barnes with Barnes & Associates. Today we have members, as Merlin just mentioned, from across the country joining us, along with ESA staff helping behind the scenes. If you have a question or would like further information about anything we talk about today, please feel free to use the chat or question feature, and the team at ESA will be happy to assist you. The ESA team this year has been absolutely remarkable, onboarding so many of our existing longtime ESA members, as well as new members that have joined us. As we celebrate our 75th anniversary with ESA this year, the collaboration, the work that's continued for the 75 years prior has also now continued, and I want to be able to remind you, as chairman of the association for now the second year, I've never lost that focus of how important it is welcoming people of all backgrounds and specialties to have a seat at that table, offering everybody the opportunity to have a voice. I hope as you get update today from your peers who are involved with the association, along with our current initiatives, you are compelled to get engaged with the association, whatever that might look for you. Maybe it's getting more out of your membership or exploring all the ways that we can help businesses just like yours. Maybe it's joining one of our committees or task force. Whatever it is, reach out, become engaged. It's fulfilling and enriching experience, personally and professionally.
We are certainly excited you've joined us today. We'll dive right in after this membership update.
Now I'm joined by ESA COO Jillian Bateman McIntosh to give us some updates on the ESA's 2023 membership campaign drive.
Thank you, John. I'm very excited to report on the impact of the campaign and what it's done to the association in its very first year. We brought in over $140,000 in revenue and welcomed over 60 new member companies into the ESA community through the efforts of just 30 volunteers who participated in the effort.
The best part is these 30 volunteers, 100% of them produced during the campaign, which was quite remarkable. Because it was great to hear and watch everybody as they kind of got everything going to have some fun. I'd like to take a moment to recognize these folks who rolled up their sleeves and dedicated their time to help others in the industry understand all the ways ESA can be impactful to their businesses. Tatiana with National Monitoring Center out of California, Mike Barnes with Barnes & Associates out of Missouri, Jeremy Bates with Bates Security out of Kentucky, Dean Belisle with DMP out of Missouri, Matt Brandon with Avant-Garde Monitoring out of South Carolina, Melissa Brinkman with Custom Alarm out of Minnesota, George DeMarco with Deco Ventures out of California, Robert Few with the Connection Exchange out of South Carolina, Cameron Fleck, New Vision out of North Dakota, Quentin Gunther with Residio out of Louisiana, Deanne Harn with RFI out of California, Scott Hightower with Verified Security out of Georgia, Mark Hillenberg with DMP out of Missouri, Marshall Lorden with Telguard out of Georgia, Jason Lutz with Residio out of Tennessee, Kirk McDowell with MacGuard Security Advisors out of Oregon, Mark Matlock with National Monitoring Center out of Texas, Mike Miller, Moon Security, Washington, Ben Murray, Affiliated Monitoring out of New Hampshire, John Nemorowski with Sage Integration out of Texas, Audrey Pearson with Audrey Pearson Consulting, California, Barbara Cucci, Advanced Security Technologies from California, Rick Seymour, Guardian Hawk Security out of Florida, Kevin Stone with Doyle Security in New York, Danny Tollison, Turner Security out of Tennessee, Jake Vall with SS&SI, Dealer Network out of Florida, Jamie Voss, Security Solutions Northwest out of Washington State, and Angela White, Capital Security out of Florida.
It was a refreshing collaboration between volunteers and ESA sales staff who teamed up to spearhead the first year of the campaign. The sales team was energized and empowered by the ability to work side by side with some of our most active members. And 11 of our volunteers earned their way on an all-expenses-paid, inclusive vacation to Punta Cana.
We just returned from this unforgettable trip. We were able to network with others in the industry, meet spouses and guests. It was a great experience to be a part of.
If you're interested in learning more about what the campaign is all about, how much time it will take, what the effort entails, and more, we encourage you to go to esaweb.org/campaign24 to register for our first informational session. There is no more powerful way to impact the association than by spreading your story as to how membership has impacted you. I encourage you to help us grow our member community through this effort.
We'll have fun and do some good for the industry and association while we're at it.
Don't go anywhere.
We're going to listen to Rick Sheets and Morgan Hertel as they're going to give us both sides of the industry's remote monitoring debate. You won't want to miss this.
I want to be the first to welcome you guys to ESX. I know we've got an exciting week ahead of us.
We're here to celebrate ESA's 75th anniversary. When you think about 75 years of collaboration and communication, it's been incredible.
This event brings together some of the brightest minds in the industry, and we're thrilled to have you all here.
It's my second year doing the Sharks, and it was so much fun being able to make it a Shark-like experience and just hearing some of the ideas behind the innovations that they've brought to the table.
You know, the bottom line is our industry is better when we give back. And that's what mentoring is about, and that's what ESA is about.
Low performers don't voluntarily come to events like this. They don't even know events like this exist. They're certainly not taking pictures of slides and reading books to get better. Great companies, great teams say, no, this is what our mission is. This is what our soundtracks are. Yo.
Every single one of y'all in this room could have been anywhere you absolutely wanted to be this week. To pull your teams and to pull your staff out of the field, to come hang out in Louisville, Kentucky with us this week, to spend time networking, sharing the best practices, learning about new stuff from all of our great associate member sponsors and vendors upstairs. I say thank you.
You guys are amazing. I'm inspired. Thank you.
I've always taken advice I've gotten from ESX back to my team at Loud Security to make our business stronger. Whether it's a new product, a process, or an idea, I owe some of the recurring revenue growth we've seen directly to the advice I've gained in those classes. Many of you have heard me talk about R&D, which is rip off and duplicate in my world. I encourage you, attend ESX, get in those classes, the things you're going to learn and listen to. Not only is your recurring revenue going to grow, but your corporate culture will. New products, opportunities, don't miss it. But you know what? At this time, now we need to move on to a topic I know many of you are tuning into to learn more about: the industry's remote monitoring debate. Conversations online advocating for and against remote monitoring have gotten quite contentious lately.
In an effort to keep our members up to date on all sides of the issue, we've welcomed Morgan Hertel of Rapid Response and Rick Sheets of Brinks Home to enlighten us on both sides of this industry issue.
Joining me today for this discussion, first I've got Morgan Hertel. He's the Vice President of Technology and Innovation over at Rapid Response Monitoring. Morgan's also serving currently as the President of the Monitoring Association. And then I've also got Rick Sheets here. He's Vice President of Monitoring and Compliance at Brinks Home. He has served on many committees from NFPA and many different companies, so I think you'll get a sense of the richness of the experience that both of these gentlemen have. The debate that's going on across the nation of, work from home or don't work from home. The real question I've got for both you, Rick, and for Morgan is, why now? Why is this sweltering up? It didn't swelter up in 2020, 2021, 2022. It starts to, here we are in 23, and it's just risen to a pinnacle where you see things nonstop. Why now?
Yeah, I think one, it's just now being socialized across the industry a little more because those who aren't involved are learning about it. I think also when we went from it being a guide of how to do it during the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, going to temporary, everybody was like, okay, we can work through this until the emergency's over. And then when it went to permanent, that created a lot more debate because it changes our industry forever, right? Or until somebody proposes something that changes it the past.
Certainly.
But I think it's just now being socialized, and the permanent work from home is definitely something that is being debated out there. While I think everybody was on board during the emergency because they understood the necessity. Now they're wondering what the necessity is, and they want to understand, okay, since there's not a necessity, is this really what we want in our industry? And if so, tell me why it's okay. And if not, tell me why it's not okay. And I think that was the purpose of us meeting today, was to help our consumers, our customers, our dealers be educated or get involved in lobbying for them to get involved. It's no different than a law being passed. The law is passed. Once it gets socialized, everybody has a problem with the law. And then how do you change the law? You start all over again in the process.
I don't like that false alarm fine. Morgan, why now?
I think why now is because some of the same things that Rick said is that, the pandemic official emergency is over. Socialization has certainly changed with social media now. It's been getting banged around on social media pretty quickly. And now you have people in the industry that are concerned that the entire industry is going to fail if this doesn't get remedied. And so you see a lot of that going on. I don't know that the industry is going to fail if you have some people working from home. This becomes part of the same old, make a choice that we've always talked about. But you're starting to see that sort of chest thumping that's going on out there today. And it's an issue that we have to get through.
Look, as a security dealer and integrator, and I'm so busy within my business or my element, I'm not every day focused on codes and standards. I know that's a surprise, but anyway, nor is everybody that's probably in tune today. So, Rick, let me start with you. Could you get us an understanding, before the pandemic, or how did we get to this work from home discussion? It wasn't something that 5-10 years ago was a major topic going on. Can you bring us up to speed as to how we got to this point?
I'll never forget I was running a monitoring center for another large company at the time, and my boss came to me and said, hey, this is a national pandemic. It's a national emergency. We're sending all of our workers home. I'm going to need you to send your monitoring operators home. And I thought to myself, that's never going to happen. And then a few days go by, and there was a bulletin put out by UL with a few bulletins that said, if you can meet these certain requirements, then you can work remotely during this pandemic. Within a matter of a week or so, and a very smart IT team, we were able to start working remotely. In my opinion, saving a lot of people from having to go through having COVID, trying to figure out what they wanted to do around COVID. And so that's what started it, and what spawned writing more requirements for temporary work from home, and then going into permanent work from home.
Gotcha. Morgan?
Yeah, I think there's even some additional, thought is when we first started with COVID, nobody knew what it was. We didn't know if we were going to be alive next year.
Yeah.
There was so many unknowns that we knew we wanted to continue as an industry to provide monitoring services. We didn't just want to walk away and give up on that. And so what happened initially was UL came to TMA and said, look, we realize that this is a problem. And this is before we even had federal recognition as essential workers. Look, we've got enough people that need to be able to figure out how we're going to work from home, even if it's only for a few months. So that spawned the TMA work group to work on what was then going to be a temporary, and it wasn't even a standard change. Honestly, it was a guide. And the guide was fairly loose, and it was going to work for all of North America. And the goal was, how do we get people home for what was probably, at the time, we thought, couple of months at the most.
Remember, 2 weeks.
Right?
That's all
Remember, yeah. All we got. If everybody just stay home for 2 weeks, we'll be done with this. And that's how it really started. And not everybody moved home. We certainly didn't as an organization, but many did. We had the luxury of being able to space people out and really double down on the environment, doing some things to make people feel safe. But not everybody had that option, especially some of the smaller organizations. They had to figure out how to keep their people safe and how to keep their people working for them, because people were panicked. People were, people were quitting jobs left and right because they didn't want to come to work and get sick.
Yeah.
So it was a problem.
So Rick, let me think this for a minute. I hear some folks out there talking about, well, these operators could be doing social media, they could be doing laundry, they could be, playing video games or so forth. With some of those concerns in there, share with me what you think some of the most important benefits of work from home should be in consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. While those are all considerations, with the proper management, quality assurance in place, you can minimize those. Just like being distracted in the in the central station. Most central stations lock down those websites on those PCs. Of course, working from home, they could be using their iPad or laptop, but you can also see if they've timed out of their platform. You can see if they've not handled their alarms in the time that they needed to be handled, and you can also listen to their calls, or at any time with the video devices you can peek in. And the supervisors in the central stations that I've worked at and central stations I've consulted for, that's part of the supervisor's duties, is to make sure that they're online, that they're handling the calls and handling the alarms and the SLAs that they're expected to do so. So I think minimizing distractions is important. And having, to Morgan's point, UL 827 is just a minimum standard. I think the professional alarm companies and central stations that are out there that are taking advantage of working from home are doing that. But to speak to your major benefits, it's really difficult to get employees these days. And being able to have that diversity in employees across the nation instead of within a driving range of your monitoring center is a challenge. Another benefit you could see there is, I know of some central stations where, when we had Snowvid here in Texas, these monitoring operators were stuck at that monitoring center for weeks, or for over a week, couldn't leave. We couldn't get people in, or without risk busing them. If that monitoring center had diversity in their work from home environment and was spread across the country, you're on different electrical grids for each of those. You're on different internet providers on each of those. And if you have enough monitoring staff across that country, you can handle those alarms and not work with dropped alarm.
There's always risk and reward. And so anybody that's running an organization is going to have to balance that risk versus reward. And there's certainly some rewards in working from home. It's easier to hire. You have geographical no boundaries for hiring, right? You can hire anywhere you want to. One of the concerns, and rightly so, is the privacy issue. And it's pretty hard in most environments. It's hard enough in a monitoring center to take people's phones and recording devices away, which a lot of centers do. But you run that risk, and that's part of the risk reward, is you do have some exposure to privacy. Is it enough to say no to work at home? That's an individual decision, right?
This is a discussion that we're going to go much deeper in. And we're going to talk about how we got to where we are, what's going to be happening from here going into the future, so that you've got the information to be able to make a best decision for your company, your employees, your subscribers, or your community. I think with all the distractions out on social media, it's helpful to get a more holistic view of this issue from each perspective. While we've seen highlights today, you can access the full session as we stream it out to our members next week by going to esaweb.org/remote monitor.
Now we have a quick update on our new Government Insider webinars, where legislative issues you need to know about are broken down to help you understand their potential impact to your business. But don't go away. There's plenty of town hall ahead. We'll head to New York as ESA's incoming chairman, Kevin Stone of Doyle Securities, gives us financial updates, and then over to Oregon to hear from Kirk McDowell of MacGuard Security Advisors for a debrief on this year's Board of Directors election. We often get the question, why should my company be a member of ESA? There's a host of benefits that save your company money that help you get your employees better connected and educated. But there's also a commitment you're making to the industry by becoming a member. Dues investments help our industry to have a voice on Capitol Hill and in your backyard when dangerous legislation is being written. It helps us have a voice with NFPA as codes and standards are being developed.
You know, Merlin, when I think about folks asking me about what do I get out of this? What am I going to get out of that membership? There are great examples like you just said, but another one I'd like to bring to your attention we call Civic Rent. Civic Rent, what is that? That's while we as members are investing in ESA, when you realize that investment now pays for staff of 20 plus some odd members, that while I'm focused in my community or with my team, staff, how I'm growing my business, retaining things, attrition, all the different elements, remember there's another full staff of 20 plus folks that are working for you. So in a Civic Rent aspect, think about ESA's 75th anniversary. So for 75 years, there has been a staff and a collaboration working with volunteers to be able to do for the betterment of our industry. So sometimes your dollars may not just be the savings you get from training or EMP benefits or the plethora that Merlin just mentioned. Just know that that Civic Rent, even if you don't even log in, there is a team out there working for you to protect the betterment of our industry.
Advocacy is just one of the benefits of membership. To help us break down how dues dollars are spent and provide an update on our organization's financial health, we'll head over to our Integrator Director, Treasurer, and Chairman-elect Kevin Stone of Doyle Security.
Thank you, Merlin. Greetings, everyone. I'm Kevin Stone, Treasurer of ESA and also the Chairman-elect for 2024. It's my pleasure to be here today. I'd like to talk a little bit about membership benefits. Now, Doyle recently looked at our membership benefits for some of the associations and groups that we belong to. And without question, our benefits from ESA are significant. And every day we're learning a little bit more about how to better utilize ESA. In fact, my opinion is that most members underutilize the resources that are available to them. I'd just like to point out a couple very quickly. The first would be the membership savings program. ESA has negotiated on your behalf some discounted rates based on the number of members that we have, which should be able to save you a lot of money with some significant vendors that I would almost guarantee you're already utilizing. I'd also like to talk about our training program. ESA has a tremendous, very robust training program, and I believe that's underutilized as well. And I would suggest that you get familiar with the course offerings and get your team signed up. You want to invest in your team. It's going to help you grow, and you're going to be a better company because of it. And last, but certainly not least, is the insurance offering from Security America. It's tremendous. I'm personally aware of many companies that are saving thousands of dollars each year on their premiums, and Doyle can be included in that group of companies. As Treasurer of ESA, I'm very happy to report that we're financially strong and we're growing, two very important metrics. I'd like to also point out that we had a very robust membership campaign last year, led by John Loud. It looks like right now we're forecasting that membership revenue year over year will be up 13%. And that's important because membership revenue is a significant portion of the dollars that we generate in our overall revenue. Some of the things that those dollars go to support are things like our ESX trade show, which to me is the best in the industry. It also supports things like government advocacy. You know, there's a lot going on in each one of our states with right to repair bills. Those are bills that if put through as written originally, they can be devastating to our ability to provide services to our customers. So having a team out there and going after things like that, making sure that it's not going to be an obstacle for ESA's companies is very, very important. So overall, I'm happy to report that we're forecasting revenue is going to be up significantly for 2023 over 2022. I'm also happy to report that expenses will be down, and those two things will lead to a much stronger bottom line. Our net profit will be up, and we're gonna beat our budget for net profit. So ESA is in a great place. I'd like to give a shout out to our finance committee. It's made up of some industry veterans and a really strong group of people that do a great job overseeing the finances for ESA. First, there's Mike Barnes from Barnes & Associates. Then we have Brian Duffy from Permar Security and Jennifer Holloway from CIBC. Jamie Voss is a member of the group. He's our immediate past chair. And then we have John Loud, current chair of ESA. And then our ESA team members are Merlin Gilbo and Susan Edgley that both represent on the finance committee for ESA. I'm feeling really good about being chairman-elect of ESA for 2024. There's a tremendous foundation in place, and we've had some great leadership over the past years that's got us to a position where I think we're set up to really help our members grow. It's the right timing for me, and it's a good time in my life to give back to an industry that's been so good to me. And I'm very, very excited about working with all of our members to help you grow and help you maximize your business in this tremendous industry. Thank you very much. Back to you in Dallas.
Thanks, Kevin. If you haven't talked with our membership team at ESA recently, I invite you to do so. We have ESA staff members behind on the chats on this call ready to schedule some time with you. Just type in benefits review below, and we'll send you a link to schedule a convenient time to audit how you're using your membership. There's still more to cover today in today's town hall. We're going to hear soon from the industry insights from ESA board member Michael Barnes of Barnes & Associates. But first, we'll head over to Oregon to this year's Sarah E. Jackson Award recipient and chairman of ESA's Leadership, Identification, and Nomination Committee, Mr. Kirk McDowell.
So thanks, John. A pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about Link and what the committee does. So let's first of all say what Link is. It's a Leadership, Identification, Nominating Committee, and I'm honored to chair it. But let me tell you the people that do all the work, and that's our committee members. Kelly Bond, Ann Ferguson, Joe Colosimo, Stuart Forsheimer, Mark Hellenberg, and of course, you, John, as our CEO this year for ESA. You participate on that committee as well. So really, we have multiple things that Link does, and most of our work is done in the beginning of the year and then right before elections. So the first thing we do is we identify potential candidates to join the board of directors. Once these candidates said yes, they would like to run and submit their application runs, the application process, we then vet these candidates. So we do an investigation, a public investigation. It's painless, but we do make sure that they're in good standing, both in ESA, in their state, in their community, and where they live, because that's very, very important. We then oversee the election process. So we do participate, and the Link Committee does oversee the election process. And then we provide once the election occurs and we swear in the new board, we then provide responsibility and education in about a half-day period of time where all the board gets together. And Merlin and Jillian and members of ESA staff provide an overview of what staff does. And then Link also oversees that to make sure that everyone that comes on the board knows what their responsibilities are. And then if requested, the last thing we do is we work with the board members to help them find quality candidates for their committees and for committees. One of the things that was so neat about 2023 election is we had a contested election. Now, in this instance, contested does not mean confrontational. We had more candidates running for office than we had slots available. So it's very important to be on a committee and maybe even chair a task force or a committee so you're known to the constituents, which are ESA members. Because remember, you don't represent your company when you join the board of directors. You represent the betterment and the interest of the entire association. Lastly, the board is made up of 5 integrator positions, 2 competency positions. These are appointed by the CEO, which would be John Loud this year. one national company, and then 2 associate members. And then, of course, it's also made up of the chairman. So there's really 11 members of the board of directors, 8 of which are elected, 2 of which are appointed. And the Link Committee is responsible for those 8 and not the competency letter issues or competency directors. But I should say John does reach out to the Link Committee and run his suggestions by us as well. And I'm sure that'll continue next year with our new brilliant ESA chairman coming in. So that's really how it works. We do it every year because we have elections odd and even years. So that's what we do. We're pretty busy. I look forward to retiring out of this position in the next couple of years. I promised Merlin and Jillian I'd do it for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. But I'm a firm believer in stepping out, let somebody else stepping up. So I'm always looking for Link Committee chairs to step up in the future. So that's a little bit, John and Jillian and Merlin, about what we do and how we facilitate the board of directors election process. It has been an honor and continues to be an honor to serve as a Link chairman. And I look forward to working with Kevin Stone next year during the 2024 elections and beyond, until such time ESA retires me. And then I don't know what I'll do. But that's what Link Committee does. We're very, very proud. And thank you again to the Link Committee members for everything you do. And for Merlin, Jillian, and John Loud for keeping us busy throughout the year. Thanks again.
Kirk, thank you for all that you do for our association and our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we have several openings on the ESA board. There's going to be 3 integrator seats open, 1 national company seat, 1 associate member seat. I encourage you to get involved. There's plenty of other avenues for contributing your voice to our industry initiatives. Head over to esaweb.org/volunteer to raise your hand to contribute to the task force, committees, or even philanthropic efforts like our Children of First Responders Scholarship Program. We have a quick break coming up right now, but after that, we're going to be discussing training, and then we're going to hear from industry insights from Michael Barnes of Barnes Associates.
We're proud of how far ESA's National Training School has come, with not only the approvals we have from AHJs for state licensing, but also the range of content we offer the industry as an education center. We recently expanded Jillian's role at ESA, promoting her to Chief Operating Officer, to give her further reach into the organization and to pull from her expertise to advance in taking our training to the next level.
Thank you, Merlin. I'd also like to thank the ESA board and volunteers who've been extremely supportive of me throughout my time at ESA. If I haven't yet had the opportunity to meet you, I wanted to give you a feeling of my background. I have been with ESA for over 7 years in different capacities. And prior to my time here, I worked with an events management company to launch the Electronic Security Expo in its infancy. I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm lucky enough to have an amazing partner and husband and 3 beautiful daughters. I come from a bootstrap family in Boston, and I learned to tie my very first shoe on a steel-toe Red Wing boot, and was the first in my family to be blessed to pursue higher education, receiving my master's from Carnegie Mellon University. I tell you this because I've talked with many ESA members, coast to coast, who are from similar backgrounds. Hard workers who launched businesses from their garages, or 2nd and 3rd generation owners who worked their way from technician to janitor to sales and marketing director, just to reach every part and facet of the businesses that they will run. I want to assure you that as I take on this new role in helping to lead an evolution of the training that we offer the industry, that me and my peers on the ESA staff will not only meet but exceed the high expectations that you have for us. I'd like to talk a little bit about what our National Training School is busy with these days. Many of you may recognize us for our cornerstone course, our Certified Alarm Technician 1. a certification that's recognized by most states requiring licensing. But the truth is, we've evolved to so much more. We exist to help managers and business owners who are frustrated with inefficiencies, with technician churn, and with juggling licensing compliance. The breadth of our course catalog is truly what sets us apart. Not only do we offer certifications like Cat 1, but the truth is we've evolved our course catalog to so much more. We give folks the opportunity to gain continuing education units, to explore new avenues for growth. OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 are offered by the ESA National Training School. And not only do we give folks the opportunity to go wide, but to also go deep and develop an expertise in different areas such as fire, where our certifications in many states are equivalent to NICET Level 2 and Level 3. Not only do we train technicians, but we have opportunities for your sales staff. If you're looking for your sales department to become more educated in the technologies that they're selling and they're scoping, we have a course dedicated to each technology sector of our industry. This year, we recently launched an update to our video systems technology course. And in the next couple of months, we plan another update to our certification alarm technician 1 certification. Our subject matter experts are consistently on the pulse of the industry and updating coursework so that our students are learning what they need to know to be able to put that to use in the field today. I encourage you to talk to our member engagement specialists about how ESA is holistically impacting our member companies. Members like Security Pros in Indiana, where our EMP group for executive peer advice and networking is helping their owner. Or Keith Technologies in Illinois, who's leveraging our member savings program to save tens of thousands each year on batteries. Or the hundreds of members saving on fuel, hardware, and office supplies.
Another membership benefit we see organizations using to save their business money is our insurance program. Security America was created specifically for our industry from experts that understand our level of risk. We're backed by Lloyd's of London, and we offer competitive A-rated policies to help protect your business and livelihood.
I've had amazing opportunities over the past year plus where I've traveled to California, down to Texas, Burglar and Fire Alarm Association show, up to Massachusetts, been to Georgia, and a few other locations. One issue that I brought up just a few times is talking about the benefits of being an ESA member and getting insurance quotes from Security America. 3 different times, folks stood up on their own. One talked about how they've saved over $33,000. One was $18,000, and one was over $12,000. So I want to ask you the question, what could you be saving? Is it worth a quote? The reminder is you get to work with your agent, but ESA insurance still, at the end of the day, whoever you're using and they have profits, it doesn't go back to ESA or our association or our industry. It goes to that company's publicly traded bottom line shareholders. So I encourage you, do yourself a favor and just request a quote. You might be shocked at what you can get, what you can reinvest with that money back into your company, your team. Again, you get to use your broker, so give it a shot. All right, it's that time, the State of the Industry Report.
John, thank you for the kind words. As you can see in the first opening slide here, 2023 is actually shaping to be a pretty good year. A little bit of a surprise to most of us that kind of track the industry. This is a 20-year view on industry revenues, which you'll notice is segmented between the green bar, which is install and other revenue, and the blue bar, which is monitoring and service revenue. We think that's the best kind of high-level segmentation of tracking what's going on in the industry. And as it shows, we kind of came out of COVID, and for the last several years have been growing at roughly around a 5% compounded rate. That contrasts with, say, 6% before we went into COVID, or if you go back far enough, roughly a 7% rate. It looks like we've probably recovered all the way back to those higher levels of growth. We only have preliminary data for 2023, but as you'll see, we anticipate monitoring and service revenues to be up by 6% for the year, sales and installation up by 7%, and then the combined rounding to 7%. And that's a much stronger year than I think most of us thought was going to happen, but we'll take the win, right? Yeah, there's segments of the industry, obviously, that are growing much faster than the average. And of course, one part that's growing a little bit slower. We have large commercial systems continuing to boom at around 10% growth rate, all things video, particularly specialty video or remote monitoring, up 14%, smart home indicated as high as 15%, PERS, DIY, all of these segments doing very, very well, which helps lift then the kind of the largest segment, which is the traditional residential and SMB market, which is last year in 2022 growing about 3%. We think this year that segment's going to come in at a very strong 4 to 5%, which bodes well for the industry as a whole. As to whether the industry is consolidating or not with this growth, we're definitely seeing signs of that. The best way to look at that, as we've done before, is to look at this pie chart, which segments market share by type of player, if you will, segmented between national companies, which would be companies like ADT, the cable companies, Comcast and others, Johnson Controls, Vivint, which was recently acquired by NRG Energy, Securitas, Brinks, and others, currently totaling about a 43% share of all recurring revenue in the industry. If you look at the chart also, you'll see sitting right next to it is the segment for PERS and the segment for DIY. Both of those are actually also national in scope type companies. They don't generally have geographic borders for their operations. So it's good to look at each of those with a 10% share in PERS, 7% with DIY and others. And then you're left with the kind of traditional segments of the industry, which would be the regional players, which generally are defined as the SDM 100 level type players that are focused geographically, and then all of the thousands of small local players. So this is a good segment of the market. And to look for consolidation indications, we can turn to the next slide, which takes those slices and tracks them over time. So what we're looking at here is roughly a 10-year view. And what you can see just jumping right out at you is that the regional and local companies are consistently now on a trend for losing share. And we think that's going to happen in 2023. That is that the national players, including the PERS and DIY players now, probably are around 60% of the market in terms of market share. If you contrast that, they were roughly 48% about 10 years ago. So this is very definitely an indication of industry consolidation. We think it's being driven by the fact that smaller players are finding the industry to be more complex, difficult to keep up with. We're finding that things like with labor issues and supply chain issues, cost of capital issues and things like that tend to favor the larger players. But I think the biggest development that's driving this isn't that smaller local or regional players can't compete, which they can. Some of them are still some of the best performers in the industry. It just has to do with the fact that it's much more complicated and you have to make a much bigger investment in the industry. And now what's also different is you're competing against national players that know how to gain share through internal sales. I mean, we're finding particularly in the PERS segment and the DIY segment that these companies are growing without acquisition driving that growth. Where historically the big gains in market share tended to come from active acquisition. But of course, as we'll talk about in the last part of this presentation, we also have an active acquisition market as well. So how are the industry metrics doing? This is the next question. And again, big surprises for 2023. I think most of us a year or two ago, coming out of COVID, all of the problems with the economy, or at least indicated potential problems in particular, I don't think any of us would have guessed that we'd be looking at kind of back up to, record or consistent growth levels for the overall industry. And also when we look at the three key performance metrics for security companies, that we would see them improving in two of the three areas. The first is, and most importantly, is the cost to originate new customers. I mean, that is one that had been getting higher and higher consistently for years. The market was very competitive. There was a lot of discounting. You had labor cost increases coming in that were tough to offset. And so what we were basically seeing was the cost to originate a new customer actually increasing. Well, that's improved now. In 2022, it did. And again, we're getting strong indications that 2023 will have improved as well. Also, big surprise, attrition rates. This is the one that I think scares everybody the most. And surprisingly, now we're going to go on. We see through at least, second, third quarter of this year, average companies, that's improving. And that has in prior years as well, or most recently. And that's a very strong indication of overall performance for the industry. Of course, the big cautionary note, those are, of course, two of the three important metrics, and maybe a quick pause to review the economic dynamic, right? So the way you create value in this industry is, what does it cost you to originate or obtain a customer? Number two, what kind of margin do you make off of providing the ongoing recurring revenue related services? And number three, how long do you get to keep them, which is the attrition rate. Now, so we're up on two of those metrics. The big one, though, that we're down on is margins. So on average, the margins that the industry is realizing on those recurring revenues is off again. This is consistent with the trend we've seen for a number of years, which we'll talk about in a minute, which doesn't bode well for the industry. A little bit of a cautionary note, because most people expect as the industry gets bigger, it gets more sophisticated, it consolidates up a little bit, that we would see improvement in overall margins, but we're not. And quick heads up on that, it seems the biggest contributor to that being down is just the fact that we're adding additional services on top of core monitoring that are coming in at lower margins. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not like, the margins on basic monitoring or field maintenance are declining. It has to do more with the fact that the new growth is coming in with lower margins. The highest level kind of performance indicator that we look at, which balances those three kind of appropriately for what you all that run alarm companies are dealing with, is what we call annual steady state cash flow per dollar of RMR. This is like an overall productivity or efficiency ratio. It basically says, if you look at any given dollar of average RMR in the industry, was it cheaper to originate? Is the margin higher? Or the attrition rate lower, or the interplay of those three variables, how does it affect the math on that? And as you'll see here, we're basically indicating that in 2023, we're likely to see that metric move up. The preliminary indication is, which means the industry is healthy. I mean, on average, most of you are doing better than you were the year before, and that's certainly good news. So the question is, are we dealing with any threats? And I love these two cartoons. I know I show them a lot, but what we look for in the threats, the first one on the left references kind of a paradigm shift. I mean, is there something coming down the pike that is just overwhelmingly threatening to the industry or any given group of players within the industry? And I have to tell you, right up front, we're not seeing it. It is certainly still a very tough business, and I'm going to go through a couple of very specific threats that all of you, I'm sure, are dealing with. But in terms of a paradigm, are you going to wake up one day and just realize that your massive investment of time and energy and capital into your business is no longer there, or it's not worth it, or there's some fundamental shift? We're not seeing it. I mean, certainly you've got big players coming into the space. You've got technology changing. You've got suppliers changing. Those risks are there, but they're in any business. And I would say right now, I don't think the alarm industry is any more threatened, generally speaking, than it has been in the past. The more important thing, I think, is what the alarmist clock is pointing to the right, which are some very specific things that might be threatening to any individual player within the industry. And the first one is that which we just talked about a minute ago, and that's this continued decline in margins. If you look at it here, the data on the right, you'll see that on average, the industry used to generate about 10 years ago a 54% fully burdened, free cash flow margin off the monitoring and related services, or the recurring revenues of the business. Now that's down to 51%. If you think about how big the industry is, that 300 basis point decline means a whole lot of cash profit on a relative basis is not there that it was there once before. So this is very clearly a threat. It's a threat because so many people that are modeling their growth are assuming that the growth is going to come in at a margin consistent with their other recurring revenues, or in many cases that it's actually going to be a higher margin, and we're generally not seeing that. So I think the biggest threat here is just that it hurts any given company's ability to kind of model and project forward. So cautionary note around this, it's a threat. But if, again, as I talked about earlier, if your attrition rates are coming down and your cost to originate customers is lower, you can certainly handle a little bit of margin compression as well. The second threat, obviously, that's there, and we've been dealing with most notably for the last year or two, is inflation. And that's here to stay. I got to tell you, I mean, the federal government helicopter sprayed trillions of dollars into the economy during COVID. I know economists will tell you, well, it's not just the amount of capital or cash that's been printed. It's how fast it's circulating in the economy. Well, I think we're seeing the economy picking up and it's circulating very fast. This is not going away anytime soon. I know last year there was a strong encouragement that I made and others in the industry for you guys to get out and raise prices. We're happy to see you've done that. We're amazed at how high some of the price increases have been. The end users will take it. The services you perform are valuable. You're good at what you do. You deserve to make money. And of course, you got to cover your higher costs. So passing that on to the customer is a normal thing. So that's very clearly part of the threat. Buried under that, of course, because it's inflation related, is higher interest rates. That's hurting a lot of people. Share an anecdotal experience. My firm's involved in supporting many of you in raising capital. My colleague Joe Thompson was just yesterday working with a residential-oriented client of ours who borrows at roughly 15 times their RMR. And one thing we noted was, I'd never thought about it this way, was that the roughly 500 basis point higher interest rate they're paying on their debt, actually that incremental increase equals about $3 per month per customer more in costs being paid to the bank. Well, think about that. I think $3 is roughly about what they're paying to have the systems monitored by their wholesale monitoring company. So that's the equivalent of literally the wholesale company calling and saying, we're raising your prices for monitoring 100%. I mean, that's the kind of magnitude of what these higher interest rates can mean to a company. It's very clearly a threat. So you want to keep that in mind as well. The last one I want to talk about, these are kind of my big three, is the one that's been there for the last several years. This is the one that I think is hurting the majority of players and why we're seeing them exit from the industry. It's just overall operating complexity. I know I'm not telling most of you that are watching this anything you don't already know. I mean, it's just a tougher business. There's more products and technologies you have to be familiar with. It changes daily. Suppliers are changing. Labor markets are changing. The world's moving even more so online for advertising and marketing spend. I mean, it's just much more complicated. And I think this is the biggest threat that's affecting most players in the space. So the bottom line is then, okay, so we've got slightly improving operating metrics. We've got at least two of the three big ones are, we've got growth in the industry moving nicely and picking up a little higher than everybody thought. So where are we in terms of values and acquisition market? Because of course, what you want to know if every day you get up and you keep your investment in your security alarm operation, do you want to keep it there? Or should you think about trading out? Well, what we saw in 2022, this chart you're looking at, our bubble chart, each of those bubbles is a transaction. It's priced or it's scaled by the size. The smallest bubble would be a 100,000 RMR company. The largest one would be 10 million. This is a segment of the market that we look at because it's most telling about the direction of overall values. And happy to answer questions on any of these. If you have, just email me. I won't get into the details on it. But generally, what you'll see here is we've been in a very strong market. We bounced out of COVID after the market kind of locked up and declined very nicely. Mostly this is symptomatic of optimism that the economy was going to pick up. It's optimism or confidence in the quality of the services that the industry provides, which are huge in the demand for them, and capital still being cheap until here recently. So we've been on a very steady upward decline in average market values. That's distorted a little bit by the fact we had some very good performers trade. But generally speaking, market values have been up. If I move that slide forward, though, and show you 2023, which we're still tallying in there, I think I can confidently say that the market probably peaked. It probably peaked in either late 2022 or early 2023. I think we're in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. I don't know whether market values are going to stay high and continue flat or whether we might see them kind of trend back down. You know, all markets run in cycles. We're clearly going to be facing this at some point. And I think capital costs being higher are clearly the biggest contributor here. And maybe as a preview for what this data says and why that's the case, talking about the market is the most recent sizable kind of high profile deal, which is ADT selling their commercial division to GTCR. Most of you know GTCR is a highly skilled private equity fund. They've had a number of great successes in this industry. And they bought the commercial division of ADT, which ADT had been working very hard on to assemble over the last couple of years. And what you'll notice if you go look at the market value on that is that it traded at 45 times RMR. So this is, $35.5 million of RMR, pretty well configured, 100% commercial, which is the hot spot in the industry, trading at 45. So good value for GTCR, good move for ADT if they want to slim back down to being a residential company. But I think most of us kind of looked at that and said, 45, good solid value, but maybe a little bit middling. The market, I think, a year ago probably would have rewarded them with a higher value. So that's kind of my assessment again, just to bring it full circle. 2023, good year, good time to be in the business if you've got capital and you're skilled at handling change. So that's it. Back to you in Dallas.
The First Alert Video Doorbell. It's a high-resolution video doorbell with built-in intelligence that helps keep an eye on everyday things and notifies you about events that matter. You can keep an eye on your home from anywhere by using our app, or simply watch for your delivery, all while lounging by the pool. You can even tap to say, "Hi, can you bring those around back?" The high-resolution camera captures images and sends alerts to your phone when it detects packages, vehicles, animals, or people, like when your kid is playing in the front yard. And if you only want alerts about certain areas of the property, you can customize the detection areas and select between people, packages, vehicles, and animals. Now you'll only get notifications when things happen in the areas that matter to you. Say you notice a package missing on the front porch. Well, the First Alert Video Doorbell stores video clips and lets you play back events anytime. So you'll see exactly when the little porch pirate knocked the package behind the azaleas. And with 3 viewing options, you choose the one that captures the best angle more clearly. Now, say there's a snowstorm and the outdoor temperatures drop. The doorbell keeps recording even when it's below freezing out. And how about when it's dark out and difficult to see? Well, the doorbell has night vision. So if it's dark and you hear a noise outside, you'll be able to see what's happening in color. And there's also the built-in spotlight and siren for lighting the path or warning intruders. Delivery guy? What are they doing here?
I've got your s'mores order.
Connect to the future of home. Get the First Alert Video Doorbell installed today. Hey, you! Scream! The First Alert Video Doorbell. Look after the things that matter. Anytime, from anywhere.
Thank you, Michael. The information you curate is so important to the industry. I'd like to thank all of today's contributors. The time and passion you commit to the association is so impactful. Thank you for all that you do. I'd also like to thank our current board of directors. Jamie Voss, President of Security Solutions Northwest. Kevin Stone, COO of Doyle Security Systems. Mike Barnes, founder, partner of Barnes Associates. Steve Firestone, CEO at Firestone Strategies Group. Doug Bassett with Xfinity Home. Brendan Armstrong, controller for Trinity Wire and Security Solutions. Jeremy Bates, president of Bates Security. Melissa Brinkman, CEO of Custom Alarm. Randall Renfro, president and CEO of Allstate Security Industries. Rick Seymour, COO, Guardian Hawk Security. Jason Lutz, Industry Affairs Leader, Residio. And Dean Belisle, National Sales Trainer, Digital Monitoring Products.
Let's not forget about our chairman, John Loud. He's helped to lead this association with an energy, passion, focus, and drive that will be difficult to emulate. Thank you, John, for all that you've done for the association and for the industry. We also need to thank our executive strategic partners for their collaboration and support. Without their help, many of our initiatives would not be possible. I would like to give a special thank you to our diamond partner, Residio, for your investment in the pro installation electronic security and life safety industry. We thank you.
It's been fun to recap the need to knows today with you and to share just a bit about what we're doing at ESA. And it's been an honor to serve as your chair. This conversation doesn't end here. Stay informed. Let's keep the dialogue going. I hope you'll join me at this year's membership campaign. Expect excitement, thrill, adventure, and a great trip coming up next year. But at this time, I certainly hope they're going to see you at ESX in Louisville this upcoming June. As a reminder, please reconnect with our ESA membership team. Go through your re-onboarding. Don't miss out on that return on investment and all the possibilities of what you could be receiving as a member of ESA. And for the prospective members out there, I have some campaign volunteers that would like to have a small little chat with you. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Seven, 8.
Switching back and forth.
I gotcha.
So just read naturally, don't need to wait.
No, they're videoing. They're videoing. I just came back from Munich.